Well, folks, 2026 is off to a great start, but hey, what about 2025? What are some of the great accomplishments that we've made here at CAL FIRE? Well, we're going to talk about that all podcast today. We've got some great discussion points, and you might be thinking even, what about that 66-hour work week thing that we started? Hey, we've got answers to that as well. So you all stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Let's get cooking. I'll tell you what, we are off to a nice start in 2026. Here we are, our first podcast of the year. But let's do a little bit of reminiscing, if we can, about 2025. What an amazing, work-filled and eventful year that happened. A lot of things went on right from the very beginning of the year, thinking about the January fires, and then we rolled right into all kinds of different things that occurred for us as a department. A lot of amazing accomplishments that I think we can talk about for today's podcast. So maybe we can just start off with highlighting a few of those things. There's probably a plethora of things that we can go all day on, but just starting off really quickly for you guys, what are some of the things that stand out about 2025 that you would recognize as some of the accomplishments that this department had?
I appreciate that, Monty, and as I think about this, you've already hit on it, that we started January 2025 largely with everybody on duty, everybody working hard, dealing with the fires in the Los Angeles basin. And so to reflect back and think about what we accomplished in 2025 is just amazing to me. Amazing that we spent the first several months there dealing with that emergency. We dealt with emergencies throughout the 2025 calendar year and still accomplished what we did. So often we find ourselves in a place where we are task-driven, goal-oriented, and so often we find ourselves not stopping for a moment and recognizing and living in those accomplishments and those moments where we can appreciate where we've come from and where we're going. So when I think about 2025, I think about some of the budget change proposals that were in effect. Just earlier today, we were talking about this, that there's been so much movement and so much growth in the department from the direction of the legislature and the support of the administration and the direction of the administration, that we find ourselves in a place where budget change proposals that had been approved and signed by the governor were being implemented and put in place. And so at one time we had the crew program, we had relief staffing, we had direct mission support, and we had the implementation of the reduced work week, which brought both bargaining unit 8 employees, but also administrative positions for the programs, all implementing them at the same time, which really brings us to where we are today.
No, so true, Chief. There has been so much accomplished in 2025, and just it's incredible to see the work that all the programs have done. Just one example is look at the C-130s and where we are with those programs and that aviation program and bringing those. We're now up to 3 that are operational. The goal is to have the remaining 4 of 7 have the return delivery systems in by the end of this year. I mean, that program has just been moving forward. We now have them here in Sacramento, as well as at our Fresno base. Our Ramona base is under some improvements to improve the retardant fill opportunities there. Once that's in place, we'll be able to move one of those tankers down there. So just a huge accomplishment there in that aviation space. All 16 of the S-70I helicopters, the Firehawks, are here in California, operational. We have all of the main bases now have transitioned from the Huey to that Firehawk platform. That has been a huge accomplishment. That has been many years in the making, so many people involved, but we finally accomplished that in 2025.
Yes, absolutely, Chief. That makes a whole lot of sense. And so thinking about some of the other areas in the department that we also have seen accomplishments in, one of the areas that I also think about is like human resources. Obviously, Chief Tyler, a lot of your discussions have been about the people and making sure that our people are good. And so maybe we can talk about some of the accomplishments that we've had in that area, in that space. What do you think?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, this goes back to the cover of our strategic plan, where we want people focused. And we've said that the whole time, and that still continues to this day to be our number one priority. And I still believe that people are what drive and motivate the organization and are what brings its accomplishments and successes. And so, I started a few minutes ago and I talked about all the budget change proposals that are moving forward. And we recognize the impact on the programs, the regions, the units, but the impact's really on those who are leading our human resources, our management services programs. And so we're trying to find ways to be more efficient, to streamline, to help those who are interested in employment in CAL FIRE find ways to employment. And so one of the things that I was proud of is we were able to attend an Innovation Awards Summit, and CAL FIRE was awarded that summit.
That's right, that award.
Awarded
Yeah.
that award.
Yeah.
Awarded award.
Award of the award. Yeah.
But it was for joincalfire.com. And I'm so appreciative of that website, because what it does is it allows potential applicants to really focus on CAL FIRE as an employment opportunity, and then find a pathway from that back into Cal Careers, into the Cal HR website, to be able to actually fill out and complete the employment application. And so it has brought a lot of success, and yet we still recognize that a lot of people don't know that it's even out there. So joincalfire.com if you're interested in employment opportunities in the department. It's important that human resources and management services had come together and looked at class consolidations of our paramedic classifications into a range and not its own classification, as well as changing some of the minimum civil service class specifications to be able to get onto that eligibility list through joincalfire.com to be able to move that forward. And then we recognize that reduced work week and those additional direct mission support positions are really to relieve some of the workload that have been existing in this department for a long, long time, to try to give people more focus and more opportunity to recognize that there is life outside of work.
Yeah.
To find those moments of opportunity to enjoy that time, either by yourself, with family, with your friends, just exhaling from what we do every day.
Yeah.
That's so important. There's so many opportunities, I think, for our employees to, and really in the work that the Human Resources Department is doing. I mean, Ready Rebound came along. We have a pilot with them to really help our employees that
Yes.
are injured either on the job or off the job be able to get the services they need to get back to work sooner. And so that's a pilot we're doing with them to see if that's an effective tool for our employees. And so far, we're hearing really good results
That's right.
there.
That's right.
We have our
Yeah.
Be Well screenings for all of our employees, not just our firefighters, but all of our employees, to make sure that we really are able to figure out how is the health of our employees, and do they have what they need for nutrition, for health, for physical fitness, so that they are able to come to work and be productive, but then also outside of work be able to enjoy their lives. And so those are just such valuable tools that we have available.
Staying on that whole health, wellness, really bringing in that eligible workforce and getting them trained and getting them onboarded, and really making a difference for the mission of the department is also recognizing from our training component that throughout 2025, we're revising what we call 4021, or some of our policies related to employee development. And we recognize that historically our ION training facility in Amador County was not able to maintain the expectation of the number of employees that
that
we're going to need to be
volume.
trained. So in addition to our training center at Ione, Riverside, Reading, Ventura, our training center at Natomas, our administrative training center, we added Atwater. And Atwater took off in the middle of 2025. They had already been doing training at the local level, but bringing it to a statewide perspective, are
Right.
really doing a great job to meet our needs across the state.
It's been huge for us. Yeah.
On that training point, last year in 2025, we trained over 650 company officers at our Company Officer Academy. That's the most ever for our department. And that really speaks to how our department is growing and the work that our training staff is doing. Over 4,000 students, 4,000 CAL FIRE students went through our training classes over this last year. And so just tremendous workload.
Tremendous. And thinking about, projected 14,000 employees that we can potentially have coming into the department right now. Everything that y'all are talking about training and join CAL FIRE, all of those pieces are really huge to really making this department a success as we look forward to everything, that we're thinking about from a budget. And we'll talk about the budget in a little bit, but it all kind of makes sense as we're thinking about where we're headed as a department. So really great work. Shouts out to all of those folks who are doing all of those wonderful things in those areas. That's good stuff. What about some of the areas in technology? You talked about the Innovation Award that our IT folks received. Talk about some of the other technological things that we've accomplished in 2025.
So 2025, we made a big announcement in terms of technology is starting a new unit within our department. It's the Fire Innovation Unit. So we're referring to it as the FIU. And that job of that whole unit is going to be working under our technology program, our technology deputy director, and really looking at all things technology that can support our department, not just on the firefighting mission, but on the human resources mission, on the resource management mission, on prevention, on law enforcement, on all of the things that our department does, and how can new technologies help in that space. And so we've dedicated staffing to that unit whose job is to be the bridge between innovators outside of our department that have all of these amazing ideas that they are bringing forward and tying them in with the right programs, the right people within the actual programs in our department to vet out, are these solutions that could be helpful for our department and the fire service in general. It's not just about us, right? It's about how can these things cross over and maybe be helpful to firefighting in Brazil or Portugal or Italy or around the world where they're experiencing things that are similar to what we've experienced here in California.
Wow. That's amazing.
So that's exciting.
It's a big deal. Yeah, that is huge. Chief, your thoughts there?
That was another goal that we've talked about, is finding solutions and innovation and finding ways to yes. And so many innovators that are out there that are doing great work. And so many are in a same pathway of detection, of suppression, but it's really so much more than even those two items. It is about forced health. It is about resilience. It is about finding pathways in which we can do the research that we need to do for the technology that we need to be able to do our jobs more effectively and efficiently. And I think that FIU, there's another unit that has been established outside of the organization, but we are in close part of that organization called Fireworks, works, not fireworks like your typical fireworks, but Fireworks, WERX, which is going to bring an opportunity for philanthropic organizations, academia, local, state, federal, private, and tribal organizations together here in California to talk about not only what we could use in California, but what could be used nationally. And I think it's a model that, as we see it starting to get established and set up, it's really going to be fruitful in what those outcomes are going to be.
Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Another area where we've had some great advancements in 2025 is in the area of PPE. There's a couple of things that I'm thinking of, but I want to open that up to the two of you to talk about some of those things that we've accomplished in 2025 as well.
Yeah, so inclement weather gear. So historically, I can't believe that we're in 2025 and we've never had inclement weather gear for our firefighters. That's been issued a standard for the department. Yeah. And so our safety program did a ton of work in not only developing a standard, but getting the funding so that we now have the right PPE for our firefighters when they're out there, not only on the fire line, but also, as we know, we're a year-round organization and our firefighters are out on all risk incidents all year long. And so to make sure that we have the right gear for them is so important. And so we were able to get that solidified in policy this last year and start to get those purchases made and get that equipment out to the ground for our firefighters to help protect them.
Absolutely. And one of the other really interesting but very important pieces of PPE that we should probably mention and talk about is maternity wear and the gear there. You want to hit on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we have been working for the last few years as an organization. Our EEO program has really been the leader in this space of developing a maternity uniform. That has always been such a question for women in the fire service is if I get pregnant, what am I supposed to wear?
Yeah.
These uniforms are not very conformable to all different shapes and sizes, and it's not necessarily possible to wear the standard uniform when you are pregnant.
Right.
And so they really worked with a lot of experts and our partners in uniform manufacturing to come up with a standard that would work so that women that work in the fire service are able to continue to work while they're pregnant and can be in a uniform that looks good and feels good and is able to keep up the safety of
Right.
our employees while they're pregnant. And so that's really been exciting for our department to see that come to fruition.
Huge accomplishment there. Yeah, that's good stuff. Nice work to all the folks who were involved in that. So in addition to all of the wonderful accomplishments that we experienced in 2025, sometimes there are losses that we also endure as an organization, given the type of work that we do. One such loss was of fire apparatus engineer Danny Cook, and wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit and discuss when these types of things occur, how difficult is it for you, and even for you, Chief Burlew, when you get that call or when you get notified that something like that has happened, or, right in the middle of all of that, what do you go through? Just talk about your thoughts and kind of the feelings that you all have to go through when those kinds of things happen.
I appreciate this hard discussion. And here's what I'll say is, before I even find out about it, and I find out about these type of incidents, usually within a matter of minutes of them occurring, that there are so many other people who are already in the midst of what is going on and are already deep into the issue. The issues, the emergencies are occurring in real time as I'm being notified. And especially when incidents like Danny Cook occur as part of an all hazards organization, but outside of the peak of the fire year, things tend to calm down just a little bit towards the end of the year. And so I had hoped and prayed after August 6th of 2023 that, one, I would never have received that phone call, but two, that I would never receive the phone call again. And on December 31st, quite honestly, as I am waking up and the phone begins ringing and text messages begin buzzing on the phone, at 6:30 in the morning, you know something is wrong well before you ever pick that phone up. That somebody has gotten into an accident, somebody has been severely hurt, or heaven forbid that somebody has passed away, which is exactly what occurred on December 31st. And so in years and decades of being in the fire service, you find yourself just getting into a mode of dealing with the emergency at hand. And I hate to say that the feelings go away at the moment, but the feelings go away at that moment until it sinks in. and it sinks in just a few minutes later what is really occurring. And so a variety of things are happening. One, I'm asking questions. Two, I'm making notifications of the governor's office and waiting for more information to come in and finding ways to support our employees, their families, and their coworkers. You know, Danny was a line of duty death fighting a structure fire in Riverside when he had a medical emergency. And that crew on the ground, they jumped into action while they were on a structure fire. They jumped into action and attempted to save, to the best of their abilities, their peer, their brother. The battalion chief, Jay Allen, did everything right, did everything he was supposed to do. Going to University Medical Center in Riverside, I might have got that just slightly wrong, but they did everything that they could as well, made every attempt and every life-saving effort. And so this is yet another hard moment that we had. You know, I talked about August 6th of 2023. That was another hard moment. And there's no easy moment, whether it be our retirees, whether it be illnesses. There's no other easy moment. I am notified, we are notified as the executive team of every death that we know about, active, line of duty, or retired. Some of them hit close to home.
Yeah.
You know, as examples, we think about how the end of 2025 ended with the death of Danny Cook. But that's not much different than the end of 2024 and the death of Jason Craig. And it's no different shortly thereafter of a death of a retired mentor of ours, Rich Green.
Yeah.
And Friday the 27th of June, I was asked to speak at Rich's memorial, just as we did here in January for Danny Cook. And then after that memorial was over, my thoughts and my emotions had to change because I was off to get married. But we need to be there for our people. We need to be there for those around us. And it's not just about us internally. It is all of our partner organizations who have losses as well. One that comes to mind is Scott Wilson of the Riverside Fire Department, who passed away in 2025 as well. A member of the Honor Guard, a member of Honor Guards, and representing across the state. Scott was also a traumatic loss to the fire service organization as well.
Appreciate that, Chief Tyler. For you, Chief Burlew?
So since I've been in this job, this was my first line of duty death that I had to experience from this position in the organization, right? I mean, you deal with them so differently as you come up through the organization,
Absolutely.
just how you're involved. But this was the first time that I was the one receiving the phone call from Region. And at the time when I received the call, there was still resuscitation measures happening at scene of Danny Cook. You know, his peers were there. They were actively working him up. And at that point, we didn't know. We just knew there was a medical emergency and they were trying to resuscitate him. And so at that point, it's just prayers to Danny, prayers to Danny's family, prayers to the folks at scene that, that they are going to be successful in being able to resuscitate him. And it seems like forever, right? Until that next phone call comes to tell you, the next step. Now he's being transported. Now he's at the hospital, and the whole time wondering, hoping and praying that it's going to be a successful outcome. And at the same time, like the chief was saying, making sure all the notifications are happening, that everyone needs to know that we are doing everything possible to make that outcome as successful as possible. And then even with all of that, then you hear that unfortunately it was not successful. And immediately you think of his family, his loved ones, his parents, his spouse, his children, all
His
those
team.
people, his team,
Yeah.
whose lives, like in that moment, are changed forever.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty, it's heavy, I think, for everyone to handle that, from the folks on the ground to the family members to us here on the executive team, trying to sort through, how we can help them and how we can be there to support everyone that's hurting. And we've done a lot of work as an organization over the years of really trying to develop policies and procedures that help us through these processes.
Right.
And every time we go through one of these, it's like, oh, I think there's a little tweak here, a little tweak there, to make that a better process, because there is so much emotion in the moment.
Right.
And so you just need something to be able to fall back on to say, okay, let's just, where are the steps? What are the things that need to happen? And so there's been a lot of work with 2881 also to make sure that we're in alignment, so that together, the department and the labor group, we can surround the family and be there to support them as much as possible, be there for our employees to support them as much as possible. And I think that coordination and just the continued evolution of how labor and the department is able to work together in these just devastating times for families has been something that I'm very proud of our organization, but it's also something that's really sad that we need to do. But it's such important work to make sure that we get it right.
Absolutely.
So, we talked about, or I talked about here in the beginning, August of 2023, and we had just rolled out the new version of the funeral policy, 1039, and they ran those 3 funerals, memorial services for Josh Bischoff, Tim Rodriguez, and Tony Souza off of a brand new policy. And from that, we came back for refinement, have refinement again. And just recently, we approved a policy to go forward in the meet and confer process to refine the document yet again. And this is what I'm going to ask of our employees, is that we refine this because we are recognizing how we can do better, how we can learn, but recognizing we see the pain that the family members and the friends and the coworkers are going through to be able to do that. And so if there was one message I could really wrap this up for us is, I sound like a broken record every year when we have the program send out mandated training, forms, updating forms. But the one that is critical to update is our CAL FIRE 31 document. It's our emergency notification document. The last thing we want is for an employee, regardless of classification, to fall ill or, heaven forbid, go unconscious and not know who to contact. So I would ask everybody to please update their CAL FIRE 31s.
Absolutely. Chiefs, tough conversation to have, but really appreciate the vulnerability for the moment to talk about that. Really, really good conversation. And, you mentioned, Chief, Local 2881 and the cooperation and the partnerships that we've had with them when these types of events occur. And the one thing that I experience every single time we go through these is the absolute professionalism and beauty of the honor guard when they are there. Shouts out to them for the consistently beautiful work that they do every single time to bring pride to the deceased, to bring pride to their family, to bring pride to the department. It is a beautiful thing to see in a time of despair, but it's wonderful. And so I just wanted to say that as well. It's really, really nice to see.
I would agree. Thank you.
So in our last point, we actually talked a little bit about Local 2881 and our partnership with them and how we are really, really working hard to strengthen that. One of the things that we try to do and have been actually successful at doing for the past couple of years is we attend their annual convention. This year it was in Southern California, and I know that the majority of the E-team actually was there in attendance and supportive of everything that was happening. Talk about for a moment, why is it important for us and you guys to be a part of that, show support? I mean, this was a situation where, Chief, for you, when you stood up to speak, you got a standing ovation from everyone in attendance there, which is amazing. That's a beautiful thing. But why is it important for CAL FIRE executive to be there to show that support?
I'll go back to the same thing that I've said earlier already, is it's all about our people. It's all about our people that make the accomplishments they do and to recognize them for what they do. And finding ourselves in an opportunity, a position where I believe that while we don't always agree on everything, that labor and management right now, specifically CAL FIRE Firefighters Local 2881 and CAL FIRE Management, have a great working relationship right now, and I expect that to continue into the future. So having the executive team move into a position where they are able to interact, hear the people on the ground, hear what's happening, be able to talk about all the accomplishments that we just talked about a few minutes ago to a large contingent of the organization, to hear those items that are really pressing and concerning to our employees, their membership, provide an opportunity for us to attend the convention, which we did this year. It doesn't mean that we're going to be there the whole time, but it gives us an opportunity to talk to the delegates, to talk to the chapters, to talk to the districts about really what's going on. And in between those, we hold meetings. We had a meeting with SDG&E while we were present there. We met with retirees from the San Diego unit to be able to congratulate them on their successes as well. But it really is a time to give back to our employees, to, like I said, hear what's happening on the ground, and as you said earlier, to really show appreciation for that outstanding honor guard that we have in this organization to represent our employees, the members, together. I couldn't ask for anything better.
Absolutely.
Where do I go from there, Monty?
Ditto. Yeah, just give the ditto, and there it is.
No, I mean, I think Chief Tyler totally summed it up. Yeah. That, I mean, it's a great opportunity to be with the people that are doing all the amazing work, right? I mean, that is the group that's on the ground, that's our firefighters that are out there in the field, and to have an opportunity just to spend some time with them away from the fire station and to really hear what's on their mind and what's important to them, and to be able to recognize that so often we are more in alignment than we are different. And I think that, you know, more that we talk together, we realize that. And so just being in the same room, being able to have some tough conversations, some real conversations about things that they're seeing, things that we're seeing, and maybe where there's a middle ground to meet on some of them, I think is really important. And I really appreciate the fact that 2881 invites us to that event,
right,
and
absolutely.
That, you know, they
very
welcome us there, feel very welcome while we are there, and have time to talk and to meet, and to just see where we can move forward in the future to make it a better experience for our employees.
Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. I do have a real quick extra point, if I may, and it has to do with attendance. And one of the things that I went back, did a little bit of research about 2025, and noticed that between yourself, Chief Tyler, Chief Burlew, and even some of the other executive team members, but particularly for you, Chief Tyler, 50 different events that you attended last year, just yourself. And then in addition to yourself and everybody else attending, that number almost doubled. And so what I'm saying there is that we are doing all that we can to go out and to have conversations with our folks, figure out and listen to what it is that they have to say, and then bring that back to have the kinds of discussions that we're having, whether it's in the E-team meetings or whether it's at the management teams, the JRLTs and things like that. But I think that is a testament to our dedication to being a true part, an interactive part of what's happening in this department. And so I think that in and of itself is one of the accomplishments that we should talk about.
I appreciate that. I keep saying I appreciate that, but truly I do. You know, not only the local 2881 convention, but we went to CalJack here this last year, and I couldn't believe the Riverside unit let us out on our own to be able to go into the fire stations and sit down and have a cup of coffee and have those conversations about how employees are feeling. We got some good insight on what we can do better, what we can do different, and where our employees needed help. And so often, your point of 50 different events last year, yeah, I'll tell you, it takes a toll, and not a toll that I don't want to do it. It's just tiring, but it's important to me. But we find ourselves where getting that information from the ground level to be able to see people, to support them, when people see the support, I believe it creates motivation. And motivation is what gets things done. You know, one of the accomplishments that we didn't talk about earlier in 2025 was exceeding prescribed fire. There was just amazing work that was occurring in fuels reduction at prescribed fire. And that is because people are motivated to do it. Yeah, we have targets, we have goals, but everybody exceeded those goals. And that's because they're motivated, because we're present, because we're out there.
Absolutely.
I think the chief is already on his way to meet or beat that 50 in 2026. Monty, it has been a whirlwind so far.
And you're right. And I have to just say that 50 doesn't even include all of the graduations that you attend. You know, the awards that we do. Like there's other stuff that doesn't even count towards that 50. So we're out all over the place all the time. And the chief is moving, folks. He's moving. He's all over the place. So y'all just be on the lookout for him. You'll see him somewhere in your local area soon. I put that on you there.
Here's a useless statistic. It is we're middle of February. I've spent 24 days in hotels.
There you go.
Far, and that is strictly related to work.
There you go. Right, there it is. You know, we've talked about a lot of the accomplishments and a lot of the administrative movement and operational movement that has happened in the department over the last year. None of this stuff can happen without the money and the people being in place. And so wanted to shift for a moment into talking about the budget quite a little bit to see, you know, where do you guys see things headed? From what I understand with the governor's proposed budget, it's a $348 billion budget statewide. We are looking at, I believe, a $5.2 billion budget for CAL FIRE, 14,043 positions. So that is a huge budget, quite an accomplishment for CAL FIRE, but we're also looking at a statewide deficit. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces with this year's proposed budget, and we'll see what happens, you know, as everything progresses towards the beginning of the fiscal year. But wanted to kind of turn it to the two of you to talk a little bit about that and what y'all see coming as we move through the process. There's budget hearings happening and all of those things. What do you guys see coming in terms of the budget?
So just like you said, Monty, I think we're really fortunate as a department with what the governor has put in his budget that he released in early January of this year. And it's going to continue our department down this path that we have been going, being able to continue with the 66-hour work week, to be able to continue with our transitions to more of a year-round workforce, our firefighter ones transitioning to firefighter twos, many more of them, and to bring in some new initiatives as well. Our aviation contract comes up this year, and so funding to continue that. Defensible space inspectors, that was a limited term funding we had for those, and to continue to be able to do that work, which we know is so important on the prevention side. And then also Prop 4. So Prop 4, which was passed by the voters, has allowed us to continue to do a lot of fuel reduction, prevention work, forest health work. And so all of those pieces are part of the budget that we're seeing reflected this year. And as the chief talked about, there's also all these initiatives that we have been building on for so many years that we are continued to see funded in this year's budget. And so we are very thankful for what the administration has put forward. Right. But to your point, there's a long way to go this budget season to ensure that that is what the final budget looks
Absolutely.
like.
Yeah.
And so we've started our meetings with the Legislative Analyst Office, and we will start in hearings this spring in front of the legislature to explain to them about these proposals that are in the budget for us, and talk through why those are so important for our department, that these proposals continue and that we are able to get the funding to increase our staffing and to build on these programs that have been vital to the health and safety of our state.
Absolutely. Gee.
So many things occur within the state budget process, and just taking a step back, the state's budget is a fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th of each
Right.
year. And it's really a place in which policy decisions, proposals for funding and personnel, or funding or personnel, come together. And so much of what we are mandated to do, or what we want to do to provide to the citizens and those passing through California, really depend on what we are moving forward in budget change proposals. Now, we recognize the state is currently working through its budget deficit, and we recognize that just 10 years ago, CAL FIRE's budget was about $1.8 billion, and now, as you said, $5.2 billion is what is proposed,
Was proposed. Yeah.
starting July 1st of 2026.
Right.
So taking that step back, what we work on in a budget process started in about June, July of 2025. And then that went through the process of being discussed at the Natural Resources Agency, being discussed with the Department of Finance, being discussed with the Legislative Analyst's Office. After the governor's proposed budget comes out, usually no later than January 10th of each year. I believe this year it was January 9th is when Director Steffenshaw brought or proposed the governor's budget on his behalf. And then, as Chief Burlew just talked about, we have ongoing meetings with the Department of Finance, with the Legislative Analyst's Office, and then we go into budget hearings with the Assembly and the Senate, where those legislators get to evaluate the governor's proposals, get to ask questions about the governor's proposals, get to make revisions or amendments to be proposed in a final budget for the legislature and the administration to come together for the governor to pass a balanced budget, or attempt to pass a balanced budget at the end of each fiscal year for the next fiscal
year. Right.
So it is a ton of work, but it is really the work that we're doing on the ground, the women and men that are the faces of this department that are really what are making us successful.
Absolutely. And we have some expertise in our hands here at CAL FIRE. We're really proud of them and all of the work that I think the units and the regions do to help support all of that that's happening here in Sacramento, to put those proposals and everything together to make it happen. So shouts out to all of those folks who do those things. It's a big deal. Okay, the next point really talks about employee health and wellness and well-being, something that we talked about a little bit earlier in one of the other points, but want to just take this opportunity to really drive home the importance, and particularly some of the messages that you've been talking about for years now in terms of employee health, and it is about the people in this department that makes it run. Talk a little bit more about that philosophy and why you feel it is so important to make this department successful.
As I've watched this department grow, we also watch, since really 2013, catastrophic fires increase. We had, a variety of fires, but the ones that are in our memory or etched in our memory are fires in California, like in 2003, and then 2007. And then 2013, the Rim Fire occurred in Tuolumne County. And then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, and the beginning of 25. really set the stage of seeing more catastrophic and damaging fires that are requiring more time of our people. And so you can only run your personnel so hard and yet still expect them to serve the public on a servant's heart or servant's mindset to be able to protect the people in California. But there's a cost to that. There's sacrifices to that. There are health issues, mental health issues, broken marriages, substance abuse, all things that we talk about that we can change the pattern of. And we can change that pattern through things like we talked about earlier with health screenings, physical fitness, which I need to do a better job at. Physical fitness, not only physically, but mentally, stress, getting in the right mindset. A lot of ways that we can find ourselves being more healthy. And so I recognize that with our people. As an all hazards department is one that ran over 600,000 emergency incidents just in 2025 alone. That is weighing on a person's psyche. Now, no single individual responded to 600,000 emergencies, but we have some personnel. We have people who are responding to 12, 15, 16, 18 calls a day.
Right.
And they're seeing the worst of the worst and sometimes the best of the best. And it's not just about the firefighter. It is about our personnel who are providing the administrative support to make sure this department continues to move forward in all facets. It is about our fire and life safety program that is making sure that public buildings are safe and occupancies are safe, and California is meeting the current building and fire code regulations. It's about our natural resource management staff who are working hard to make sure that our forests are more resilient. But all of that comes, like I said, with a sacrifice. And so how do we overcome that? We can only encourage people to, as I said earlier, exercise better. Me. Recognize that we have to balance work and life, that we obtain accrued time off, and that people need to spend that time with their friends and families to reset, to exhale, to be able to come back even stronger than they were before they took that time off. Because what I want for this department is I want a strong, resilient workforce, which I know that we have, that are going to be able to serve, safeguard, and protect California. That's what I'm looking for.
So, folks, you've heard it. We have had quite an eventful 2025. 2026 is already off to a whiz-bang start. I don't even know what that phrase is, but that's okay. We're going to keep going forward. Listen, you stay tuned. We are going to be coming at you with even more podcasts throughout the year. So just stay tuned. Keep doing the great work that you all are doing out there. We will see you soon. But for now, we're going to consider this podcast cooked. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.